The following is a Papi Chulo Radio original program. The views and opinions expressed in the commentaries and/or interviews in the following program are solely those of the individuals and are not views of Papi Chulo Radio, its parent, affiliate, or subsidiary companies.
Welcome to the Silver Bells Murders, the unofficial American Gothic internet radio show exclusively on PapiChuloRadio.com. Papi Chulo Radio, pop culture on demand. Today is Friday, August 12th, 2016, and I am your host, Mike. During tonight's broadcast, we're going to recap, review, and dissect the latest episode of CBS American Gothic. Please welcome my co-hosts, Sam Hoover.
Hello, listeners. Do you know who the Silver Bells killer is yet?
It's you.
No.
No, it's not. Jess.
Hi, everybody. Hope you're having a fantastic night.
And Papi Chulo.
I don't care how mad you are. You can't pee on the other campers. And I'm talking to you, Jess.
But Poppy, come on. It's a stress relief.
Well, only if you had a lot of water.
I gotta pee.
Slowly building up that migraine. But let's jump into our recap of Season 1, Episode 8, titled Kindred Spirits. And it was aired on August 10th, 2016. While Cam is in rehab, Jack is lured into a dangerous adventure by a new friend, Sadie. Also, Garrett and Allison work to silence a local reporter who is harassing the Hawthorns, and Brady makes a bizarre breakthrough in the Silver Bells killer's case. Before I asked for everybody's initial reaction, we got a rating amount for American Gothic, and it was reported that it was a total of about 0.4 in the demo with a 2.38 million viewers, so not too bad. So it's doing pretty good. And on that note, what was everybody's initial reaction to the episode? First person I'm going to start with is Jess.
This episode was a lot of different things for me. Like, it brought out a lot of different plot threads and different things that I don't know that I was ready to deal with this week. Like, the possibility of Jack the Ripper Jr. finding love, that was just too much for me. But also, I enjoyed a lot of the aspects of this week's episode. I was very, very impressed, and I can't wait to dive into it.
Papi Chulo?
I enjoyed the episode as well. It was a slower episode, but I'm not saying that as a complaint. Obviously at some point in the season, they need episodes that maybe don't have all of the big shocking twists and turns that we've grown accustomed to. But I enjoyed the episode thoroughly. I thought there was a lot of really great character development, and the twists that we did have were surprising. So I thought it was a pretty good episode.
And Sam Hoover?
Yeah, I have to agree with everyone. There's a lot of things, like Jess said, that were very different and I wasn't expecting, minus the fact that they framed Garrett again. Oh.
Dun, dun, dun.
But yeah, Jack going off with some girl was kind of weird, and then Allison showed another side of herself that I wasn't prepared for, because they revealed so early that one of the Hawthorne family members is a killer. They have to kind of slow it down so it doesn't speed up too fast. So the last episode is blah.
Kapow.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So it's blah, but because they want it to be kapow.
Exactly. So yeah, overall, I really liked this episode.
Okay, that makes... I totally get where everybody's coming from, but I think for me, I kind of agree that the show itself was kind of I felt like it wasn't as driven in the sense that it wasn't moving forward too quickly, but I felt like it really did showcase a lot of the characters' different developments and how you see like relationships start to build a little bit more. So it was pretty good. But before we get through into a thorough recap, here are a few reminders on how you can interact with the show via social media. Follow the show on Tumblr, thesilverbellsmurders.tumblr.com. You can follow the station on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Tumblr, how I just mentioned. You can help support Poppy Chulo Radio financially by visiting GoFundMe.com/PoppyChuloRadio. Do you have any questions, suggestions, comments, or maybe even concerns? Email us via contact@PoppyChuloRadio.com. Are you interested in joining the Poppy Chulo Radio team as an on-air personality or blog contributor? Email talent@PoppyChuloRadio.com. You can binge listen to your favorite Poppy Chulo Radio programs by visiting PoppyChuloRadio.com/archives and search for the Silver Bells Murders through iTunes and hit the subscribe button. New episodes are available to download on Fridays throughout the summer. So, if we were to go ahead and start out through from the beginning, we notice that the show starts off with leading off right from the previous episode, and we see Garrett trying to pull out quite a bit of money from the bank, which was roughly around 200,000. During that time, we noticed that the teller is like, I have to get, your mother on the phone in order to make sure that the transaction goes through. So through it all, he decides to go through it all. He decides to pull up the entire, 200,000, and he goes to where Christina was working at, and he decides to go ahead and donate the money to them. And during that time, Jess, how did you feel about that? That he just wanted to pull out $200,000 and then just immediately just give it away?
In terms of, Garrett and his whole persona and the things that he does, he is just shifty to me. And so when he was asking for that much money, I honestly was like, yes, he's finally gonna fuck out of this family. He's just gonna be like, I'm going to somewhere exotic, I don't need you, and I'm taking all of your money, and you guys can just suck it, basically. I'm leaving. And then when I saw what he was using it for, a piece of my cold, dead heart came alive.
Aw, like the Grinch.
Little bit, maybe, sort of, I guess.
Okay, and what about you, Samantha? How did you feel about that whole interaction that Garrett wanted to pull up that much amount of money and kind of just acted real cool about it, that it would be in the family's best interest in order for them to do that?
I was like, yes, this guy's gonna blackmail Madeline. I was so excited, and then he gave it away, and I was like, okay, that was a pretty good gesture. Well, because when he was in the hospital bed last week, he's like, what would you do if I told the truth? And he was really pushing the envelope. And I thought because he didn't say anything just yet, that he could hold something against Madeline. So I was kind of excited to see what he would do. I think he did it in part for Christina, but for the clinic as a whole. And that was just a really nice gesture. And it kind of fared off some of the bad press they've been getting. But I think Garrett did the right thing, absolutely, with all of that money.
So I guess I can see where that's coming from. So if we were to actually dive into his reaction, would you guys feel that he really was doing it for the family's best interest, or was it more in regards to his own self-interest? But it just so happens that it was compiled with his entire family. I'll go with you, Poppy. How do you feel?
Well, in the beginning, it seemed very sketch, and I was definitely on the Sam train, thinking like, oh, okay, last week he was like, I got secrets, keep me happy, let's whatever, and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, okay, he's doing, I don't want to say the smart thing, because it is kind of like the wrong thing, but it is the smart wrong thing to do. I was like, okay, he's getting all this blackmail money, he's gonna be rich, bitch, he's a real big timer. I was like, I was all for it, but then I was like, oh, okay, he's donating the money. He's giving it to this small clinic, probably in a way to sort of either get Christina's attention or to like basically say I'm sorry or whatever. And then I was like, okay, that's nice. That's not bad. You know, using like money from the family whose patriarch is at least one element of SBK, you know, using that money for good. I was like, okay, I can see what you're doing.
So then you feel like it was a smart, like kind of smart but kind of bad. Like it was like in the sense both ways, both like a smart move but not really a smart move. Like, would you agree to that?
I would say I thought it was maybe the most honorable thing to do. As far as in the long run, like, would this hurt him at some point? Like, can people like twist it and turn this into evidence against him or the family? Maybe, you know, I guess, you know, if you do anything when you're under like the watchful eye of people, sometimes whatever you do, even if you're just checking the mail, it might seem suspicious. So sure, it could end up seeming suspicious in the long run, but at least at that moment, I feel like he felt he was doing the right thing.
Yeah, I can agree with that. That makes sense. If moving on to the next scene, we kind of see that the little interaction with Garrett and his mother are kind of, you know, she immediately asks questions, you know, what did you do with the $200,000? I mean, she immediately wants to know what exactly is happening to her money, and he just simply states, you know, it went to, you know, a good cause. He literally just answered it the usual Garrett way that he would normally answer to his mother. And then moving on a little bit further, we see that the reporter is again brings light to some, you know, crisis that the Hawthorne family is dealing with, and Allison is trying to figure out where her sources are coming from because she has no clue how on earth this reporter is getting all this information, and which then leads to the show leading to show that Cam is in rehab, and he seems to be doing fine. He's talking to a nurse, and this nurse seems, you know, really, really nice. She seems, you know, somebody that he can definitely speak to about his problems, his issues, somebody that he can definitely grow accustomed to be, you know, close to and try to connect with. Jess, how do you feel about that type of connection that Cam has with this nurse? Like, do you feel like it was a good setup for him, or how did you more or less get a feel for this scene?
Okay, first of all, I have to admit I'm super biased. So I recognized the nurse, her voice. She's Haley from One Tree Hill. I love Haley. And so automatically when I recognized her, I just was like, oh my God, you're so much better than Sophie. I don't care. You could be a murderer. You could stuff Cam's body in your trunk and dump it in the river. And I would still think that you were so much better than Sophie. I love you. Just because I recognize Haley from, you know, my teen years. And so for me, Nurse April is a great addition. I love how she bounces off of Cam, and I love the way that they introduced her, like when she was like, oh, hey, I know you, and she's like, oh, yeah, well, of course you would, because, you know, my family's been on the news and all the stuff that's surrounding them, and she's like, no, like, I know you through your work, and she's able to create a dialogue with Cam that's about his triumphs, not about his failures or his struggles, or, you know, the things that he could or should be doing. She's actually helping him kind of see the value in what he's done as opposed to all of the mistakes that he's made. And I thought that that was really, really cool. I thought that, like, about 2 seconds in, I was shipping them, which is terrible, but I was like...
You're immediately shipping them.
I attached to them like a flesh-eating bacteria. I was like, no, kiss!
Kinky.
Like, right away, like, I want them to go somewhere and, like, Sophie can have Jack, whatever. Jack doesn't exist anymore. Jack is a mistake. But, like, I want April and Cam to go somewhere and live in a little apartment full of books, and she can drink coffee, and he can sketch.
Pumpkin spice.
And stay in bed all day,
And
it
everything
will just
nice.
be amazing.
Yes. Well, I think we can all agree, right, that a wet, stray dog that's covered in fleas, filled with rabies and the Zika virus is better than Sophie, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Jack too.
And Jack. Let's throw Jack in the mix too.
Jack and
Sam is
Sophie
Team
are
Sophie.
One and the same.
No, I just feel bad for her. I don't love her.
So you'd like give her a hug and like
And
you
then
take
walk
her
away.
out for like Starbucks and then take selfies with her?
I would hug her and walk away.
And then you'd have a strange smell on you for the rest
Why
of the day.
would you hug her? She's a terrible person. She'll steal your wallet, Sam.
To use it for drugs.
Okay, I wouldn't hug her that long.
She'll
I would
steal your
just-
social security card. Why would you?
Tap on the shoulder.
Bad
She'd get a
for you.
reverse mortgage in your name.
Oh,
I love her so much I'd call the police.
okay.
They were the first person on my list.
For me, I hate the person that's framing Garrett more than Sophie, so
I second that too. But moving on a little bit further, we see, Tessa, going to the doctor just to, the typical routine type checkup, and we kind of notice that her persona around it is, she's worried. Like her face isn't, full of, happiness and joy that, a potential mini-me of her and Brady is coming into this world. She seems, taken back. She seems frightened. She seems concerned, considering all of the media outrage and storm that's pretty much surrounding her family. And, we kind of see the doctor ask, oh, well, your husband knows, right? And she, does he know that you're pregnant? And she says, oh, yes, he does. He knows. And she obviously hasn't told anyone. So right there, we can kind of see more or less that Tessa is really struggling, really has these major internal struggles of coming to terms with maybe potentially bringing a child into this world, considering that what her family is going through. She really is under this impression that bringing a child into this is the literal wrong idea for this, life. And that this is definitely what she would not want for her child at all. So, is it safe to assume that her worries are definitely in the right place, or do you guys feel like that this type of worry and concern that she brings, do you guys that it kind of eliminates her from being a potential suspect?
No.
How do you guys feel about that? Poppy, you immediately answer, so I'm going to go with you.
Yeah, I don't feel like it eliminates her as a suspect because she could have, if this happened in her childhood and if maybe it was a traumatic experience, she could have forgotten, or maybe with extensive therapy and whatnot because they have a boatload of money. But
So you mean like a secret thing, like something under the rug? Like, because since they have the money for it, you would assume that, that they paid off somebody to treat, but to not necessarily have it on the keeps, like to have it in record.
yeah, possibly. I mean that
Okay.
could be a theory, but like not thinking sort of sinisterly in that way, just seeing her as a person. I mean, I get where she's coming from. I mean, she comes from a fucked up family of people with these intense psychoses. So of course she's going to be freaked out because that baby is 50% her. I mean, she's probably praying that baby, is like more so like the 50% of Brady's side, because Brady at least is normal and it doesn't seem like he has
Well,
any
she's-
psychoses.
Brady.
Exactly, but he doesn't seem to be a killer, so she should be praying. She's like, oh, please let this baby be 100% Brady, because if it has any little piece of my DNA in it, it might end up killing me in the middle of the night. Because she's like looking at Jack.
Okay. Sam, how do you feel about that? Do you feel like that her reaction, the way that she's portraying herself in regards to being nervous, frightened, scared, whichever word you would like to portray Tessa, do you feel like that it kind of eliminates her from being a suspect, or do you feel like that it shows a more caring, nurture side of her that we've already seen, but it just shows a different aspect of how she goes about it.
I mean, I have never heard of this gene, and she's probably never heard of this gene, and she's like, I don't want whatever's in my family to be in her or him. And does it eliminate her? Not at this point. I can't really read her, but she's been acting a lot different. I think she's just trying to get this SBK case off of the docket so she can relax. And, you know, it's not going as quickly as she would like, and it's kind of like her family's still getting bad press, and she's just like there's just lots on her plate. So I don't think that excuses her 100%, but I do think I understand where she's coming from, and if that gene was in her child, I think she would be devastated for sure. I assume that it's in Jack, like that. I don't think anyone disagrees with me. So
Yeah, think?
yeah, yeah, I don't want another Jack running around. Are you kidding? Like in a few years? Yeah, I don't think overall it eliminates Tessa. I just think it's a cause for concern in the whole family. Like, who else has this? Where did it stem from?
Yeah, I see both y'all's points when it comes to that. If we were to skip on just a little bit further, we see that Tessa drops off little spawn of Satan over here, Jack, to the camp that was mentioned in the previous episode, and we kind of see that he somewhat takes a liking to it, but not really. Like, kind of like it, curiosity gets a little bit of the better of him at the moment because, you know, he's not at home, and he's wanting, because he thinks that he already understands more or less that this is a therapy type thing for kids, but he's under the impression that, well, you know, give it a shot. So Tessa speaks to the director of the facility and explains that we kind of need to know more or less if it's a nurture or nature, more or less how the child's upbringing is, or what are the other factors that may involve, you know, Jack being this type of individual would be considered troubled, to, you know, because of all the things that he's done in previous episodes. We've noticed that he has done, you know, really interesting, safe word here, really interesting things that he's done that you normally would not see in a child of his age.
Yeah, thing.
At all do. So we get a feel for more or less that this facility is supposed to better Jack. Jess, how do you feel about this facility? Do you feel like it was a good choice for them? Do you feel like for the family to try to put Jack here, or do you think you would have done something differently if you were in their shoes? And I went to you specifically because I know how much you love Jack.
Something's wrong with Jack. Yeah, no, I don't think that. I was really surprised at, you know, the whole summer camp friendship bracelet vibe that I got from this place. I thought it was going to be less Parent Trap and more Arkham Asylum, except he's never ever getting out. And literally,
I love how you called it the Parent Trap.
They are in a camp in that movie, right? It's been a couple of years.
Yes, no, but it's funny.
Okay. All right.
Like, you see two Lindsay Lohans all of a sudden.
If there was two Jacks, I would die. I wouldn't watch this show. I wouldn't be able to handle it. Jack is one of those characters that I hate it when he pops up on the screen, but, like, I need to know if he's going to realize his full potential as a serial killer. And actually, the whole idea that he's potentially got this serial killer gene, this warrior gene, the MMOA gene, it reminds me of the book Defending Jacob by William Landay, and they actually go into detail about what this gene means and, you know, what it can potentially cause a person to do. So I was already familiar with, you know, the concept of the gene when they brought this up, and, like, the different risk factors that he could have. And I'm like, why is he at a summer camp? So he can trade ideas with kids about how to make friendship bracelets out of other kids' intestines?
Yes.
Like, is that what you're doing? Why is he not in a padded cell? Like, I don't necessarily know that there is a cure for Jack's brand of illness, if that's what it is technically like the terminology for it. I don't know that he can be cured. Like, it might just be something that is in him that he can never really escape or grow out of or get past. Like, and then of course he terrifyingly met probably the only person on Earth
that would ever love him,
that clicks with him, which, okay, shamefully my first reaction was like, wait, he's a serial killer and he can find someone and I'm still single? I don't understand. I don't understand.
Jess, would you like to date a serial killer? Is that what you're saying?
No, thank you. But why? Why is it so easy for him to find someone? Even though she did totally, like, crush an ant, and, like, I think
that was a cockroach.
I thought it was an ant, but I'm really bad at identifying bugs.
You don't want that crawling up your leg, Jess.
No, I don't want anything crawling up my leg, especially not if it's got...
Unless it's an ex-boy bander.
Especially not if it's got, like, serial killer children around it, because those two, like, honestly, I was like, oh god, there's another one. What the... Why are there so many of these children? Like, why?
Walking around on this earth.
Who did this? Who gave them permission?
And it's interesting because in the episode they do mention about the enzyme MAOA. So I can just imagine so many people are going to kind of maybe a few people are going to look it up on Google or on Yahoo or whatever type of search engine they want to do.
Bing.
Or Bing. Don't forget Bing. But it's interesting that they do bring up a more biological sense of where it's coming from. So it is interesting because not many people know that it's an enzyme that more or less affects the different types of neurotransmitters that are located in our bodies, such as like norepinephrine and serotonin. So I think it's really cool that they bring up this element, this new thing, instead of immediately going with the idea that that somebody had to have contributed his behavior. So I think that's really cool that they bring out a different way of trying to portray why this may be happening, or what may be a reason as to why certain behavior patterns are happening. So I thought that itself was pretty cool. Now, we go on a little bit further and we see our two lovely ladies, Madeline and Allison, visiting the reporter. And this scene, I think, was really cool because, as we all know, we see Allison and Madeline kind of similar in personality traits, in the sense that they both want to have this sense of control. They both want to be able to have all the
like
cards.
Janet Jackson.
And yeah, pretty much. They want to be able to have all the cards on their side and being able to have access to all of the potential plans, routes, notions, everything you can think of on their side, knowing full well what are the possible consequences and what are not. So they try to convince the reporter that how much damage you're doing to our family. And she simply just says, well, was there anything that I said that was a lie? Because if it was, I'll be more than happy to, state, I will be more than happy to state on live air and retract everything I said. And they stay quiet. And she simply just says, that I'm going to keep doing my job. There's nothing you can say or do that'll change it. And Madeline brings up an interesting point, and she mentions that, do you not know how much, turmoil and how much pain you're causing, and how much you're tormenting our families. And the reporter just simply says, if you want to talk about traumatized, let's talk about how the families that lost their loved ones because of your husband, let's talk about that. So I thought that was a really interesting little conversation that they had. So she just simply says, I'm going to keep doing my job. There's nothing you can do to change it. And she simply says, she says that, I was holding back, but I'll be more than happy to go on further, and she just simply throws in a little extra jab, extra punch. She says, about Jack, oh, I hope Jack's doing good. I hope Jack's doing okay in his camping trip, or a trip or whatever. And you could just see Allison just fed up, and she's had it. So that scene, Poppy, what did you think of that scene? Were you like, oh man, like this reporter just really just wants to go at it, or how did you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, it was once again another sketchy moment. I had
But sketchy moment in what sense?
well, I mean, obviously she kind of has all the cards. I mean, she knows everything, and it was very creepy, if you're a Hawthorne, because you're like, how the hell do you know everything that's going on? How do you know this? How do you know that? And at the end, that little last dig, like, oh, okay, say hi to your grandson that's over at the crazy camp. I'm like, if I were them, I'd be like, how the fuck does this lady know all this stuff? Like, who's spilling the secrets? Like, who could know this? And like, my mind would be like reeling of like, who have I said this to? Who have I said that to? Who could have possibly have done this? So I liked her because she was not playing any games.
She's got some balls in her.
She does. She's got lady balls.
Yeah, she does. And she brings up this persona that, you may think you have a chance of trying to figure out how I'm getting all this information, but you literally have no idea. And she knows it because she's able to articulate every single event that's happening in their life, and she's able to just simply report it, and no consequences to her for whichever way she's getting her information. So her little interaction's pretty interesting. I liked it how she kind of just put it in Madeline's face and just said, ha, I have all the cards. I'm able to articulate how I want this to go, and I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing because there's literally nothing you can do. And then moving on just a little bit further, we do see that Jack is talking to Garrett on the phone, and Jack is, explaining that, I want to get out of here, that these people are like super nuts, they're weird, and Garrett simply just tells him, that my cabin is roughly, close there. You can see like,
Garrett, how stupid are you?
Right? I was thinking, why would you do that? Like, why would you even, give Jack...
my cabin's like nearby, and the key's under the mat, and there's $10,000 in the safe, and the code is 12345.
Him just to stay there, enjoy it, whatever. But nope, he told him that, oh, you can find my cabin, it's not far from there, blah, 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 blah. And we kind of see that Jack takes an interest towards a girl that kind of shows to have the same type of qualities as himself.
Mm-hmm. Jack Skellington found his Sally, or Sadie.
And I thought Jess would have loved this scene, the fact that there's another potential Jack, except with girl version.
Oh my god!
The first person I was thinking of was Jess, like, oh, Jess must be so thrilled and happy and excited for Jack that he's found somebody, to be with and to,
I puked a little. I puked in my mouth.
Exchange ideas with. So, and we'll talk about their little interaction later on. And speaking of that little interaction, we kind of see that it kind of moves over to Garrett and to Madeline and Allison. And both of the women are saying, I can't believe, she, there's nothing we can do. I have no idea how she's getting this. Things are just going to get worse. And Garrett says, you know what? I'm going to help you guys. I'm going to help you girls. We're going to figure out who the source is. And again, I got to go back and ask, why do you guys feel like Garrett is up and willing to just help? Because, he did put out $200,000, even though it wasn't really his money, it was his mother's. But, for all intents and purposes, he gave away the money, and now he wants to help out his sister and his mother. So why do you guys feel that Garrett has another hidden agenda as to why he's helping out, or do you feel like it's really just in his nature that we're finally getting to see the different layers of Garrett, or what makes Garrett, is that he actually is a genuine person who actually likes to help. It just so happens that he just appears to be put in really bad situations. I'll go with Sam.
When he gave Jack the address to his cabin and I found out that the camp was like right next to it, I was like, what the heck? Like, why would you do that? That is by no means helping anybody. Because, like, I didn't think Jack would go there, but, you know, it's Jack, so what am I supposed to think? But I think Garrett had every intention to tell him that, and it wasn't a stupid move in my mind, because what if there was something planted on Garrett that was found in his cabin that could either help his family's case or, like, condemn them even further? I don't really know what Garrett's motive was for that. He knew what he was doing. In terms of his family, I do think he was trying to help them by leaving. That wasn't really helping them. I think that was just kind of hurting them, but I think he was trying to help himself because he couldn't help the family at that point. There was something just so wrong, and he's like, I need to get out of this before I become crazy too. So that was his thing there. But now he's back, and he's going to try and make amends because the situation has changed a little bit. So I think he was trying to help them, and he is always put in the weirdest situations because it's the Hawthorne family. They're weird. So you can't really help that, right? But I don't think he had any evil motives. I think he was just trying to... They have a lot of money. I don't know how much money they net worth, but I think they have a crap ton. So I think giving away 200 grand was not a big deal. It's like pocket change for them. So I don't think they should have been mad at that. I think that was a good thing for them to do. Well, him to do in their name in a sense. Because they need to put money into their city. Like, they can't just be murderers. Like, that's not a good...
Oh my gosh.
Honestly,
They can't just be murderers, you know, they need to, like, give back financially.
they have to
Oh my
improve.
god, Sam. I love that.
They have to improve.
That is like my mantra now. You can't just be a murderer. You gotta give back to the community financially.
Don't forget to donate to the hospitals that will be indexing your loved one's body parts.
Sam is priceless. I love that. You win the internet.
Oh, thanks. I want royalties like starting right after this podcast.
Yes, everybody hashtag it and put it on t-shirts.
Yeah, I think
Hawthorns for employment.
I do think that they need to improve their image. They can't just be what they are. I'll say that. Like Allison, if she wants to win the mayoral campaign, she can't just be like, oh yeah, by the way, my dad was a murderer, like, vote for me. Because, like, she has things going for her, so she can't just have that hanging over her head. So I think by making that donation, I think that's a very sizable step in the right direction. I don't know where you go from there. You can't pardon the fact that your family killed people. You gotta start somewhere, and I think Garrett was trying to just establish that first step.
Yeah, that would make sense. So he's trying to pave the way or start the way for what it is that they need to do in order to be more liked in the community or bring better press instead of just, bad press that's happening to them. And in this next scene, I kind of want to go to Jess, because we all know Jess loves Jack. She loves Sophie. I mean, she just has so much admiration for these people. I gotta give Jess the spotlight for this. We see this little interaction that we have with Cam and the nurse for a little bit, and they're playing foosball on the table, and they're playing, they're connecting, like on a friendship level from what it seems at the moment. And then we kind of see Sophie kind of enter into the picture, and she tells Jack that, I like this, this version of you, and I think I want to give it a shot to get clean. Jess, what was your take on this scene? This entire scene with Sophie and with Cam?
Liar, liar, pants on fire. Sophie,
so
you are a selfish
give her a
prick.
chance. You're immediately just tell her she's a liar.
Yes, I am, and I'm going to kick her ass right out of that rehab, or I would if she was real. I would run her over with my wheelchair, and I wouldn't even care if I broke her foot in the process.
Well, there's that.
Sophie? Okay.
It looks like she's trying, does it not, or no?
No, I think it's a manipulative tactic, because Cam is serious about getting clean. She can see that he's starting to pull away from her. And when she started talking about, like, oh, maybe she should try it there, maybe she should get clean, I was like, oh, fuck. Like, if she inserts herself into his recovery at that center where they are not only, ex-lovers, but going through the same treatment, she will purposely cause him to self-destruct. She will purposely make his life harder. She will purposely basically induce him to try the drugs again. Like, obviously, Cam is a grown-ass man. He can and should be responsible for his own choices. And at the end of the day, he is, in fact, responsible for his own choices. But Sophie is the catalyst to almost every bad decision that we've seen him make thus far. She is like the little devil on his shoulder, except she doesn't encourage him to have a good time and, be wild and maybe gain a few pounds. She's like, no, kill yourself with me, because if I'm going down, you're going down.
Baby.
Pretty much.
Kind of like Romeo and Juliet, right? In a sense.
Yes, if Romeo and Juliet was about drugs and heroin and sex with drug dealers.
Wait,
And
so
it's
does that
crazy
mean at the end that Sophie gets stabbed? Because I'm cool with that.
By Jack.
April can come in at the very end and save Cam before he stabs himself, and everyone wins.
Oh my
Yay! Happily ever after.
Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba, beep.
Moving on to the next scene, we see that Detective Cutter and Detective Brady visit this house, this house of interest, because they were able to find out which car was associated or may have been associated with a particular
Remember the video footage.
right, based upon the video footage that they saw in this episode, but they also saw it obviously in previous episode. But they noticed that the car had a unique dent in it, so they wanted to go ahead and look through police reports and see if any types of accidents were reported or anything like that in regards to them maybe potentially finding who may have been the other accomplice. So we see that they visit the house, and we see that the house is kind of in the middle of nowhere, and it just gives you that creepy feeling. The fact that you would kind of see it in a killer movie or slasher movie. Or
it was
something.
in the middle of Ish too.
Yeah, it was literally in the middle of nowhere. At least what it was shown in the scene. And we see the detectives go up, and a woman answers the door. And this woman, as we see, is blind. She has the wonking stick in front of her, and the way her mannerisms are. So you can already make the assumption that she's blind, and she kind of makes little remarks that she is. So she allows them to come into the house, and we see Brady pull out his phone, and he's about to take a picture, and she asks, you should ask first if you want to take a picture. And I thought that was funny. I thought that was hilarious. But so they decide to ask, by any chance, do you know Mitchell Hawthorne? They ask the usual questions to try to figure out if maybe she knows something about SBK. And they ask for her husband, and she says, that he's been dead for quite a while. That he's been dead for over 20 years, around, I think she said roughly like 24 years. So she just explains that, well, I don't know this Mitchell Hawthorne or anything like that. And Brady then says, do you know anything about SBK, Silver Bells? It's all over the news. So in a way, I didn't like the way Brady was acting in a way, because I felt like he was kind of being a dick. And she simply says, well, I'm not able to, watch the news, obviously. And it was also noted that the car was actually stolen. And she states that, well, the car was stolen, a while back, and I never reported it. So then Brady decides to ask, well, why didn't you report it? And she simply says, well, I had no need for it. Which I, again, thought that was really funny and hilarious in all respects towards her. And so to them, it kind of leads them in a, wild goose chase. That it kind of just shows that, well, maybe it really had nothing to do with the case, so maybe it was just nothing. And speaking of the relationship that was there, we kind of see that Garrett is in the kitchen with Tessa, and Tessa obviously is still worried, is still kind of upset, still shaken about being pregnant and potentially bringing out another person into this world. And Garrett then finds out from her that she's pregnant, and Garrett seems very happy for her and says, well, that's good news, isn't it? And she says, but what if bring up this child in and it turns into this? And he simply consoles her and tells her, if you want, I can go with you to the doctor for the next checkup. So we see that their relationship as brother and sister are still really, really strong. Do you guys feel like that relationship is just going to keep getting better over through the next couple of episodes? Like, do you guys feel like it'll actually influence potential maybe sides coming about, or do you feel like it'll help move forward with the major plot? Like, what do you guys think of this interaction that they have with each other? Poppy?
It's cute. I mean, you can tell that he really cares for her. You can tell that she really cares for him. They have a really good brother-sister bond, and it's nice to see them develop it a little bit more, because we're sort of kind of just like told from the pilot episode that they have this bond, so it's nice to see it develop throughout the episodes.
Sam, how did you feel about their little interaction? Like, do you feel like it'll help move forward with the plot? Like, do you feel like it actually has a place in the plot, in the major plot of schemes of this show, or do you feel like it's more like a side thing that it doesn't really fuel that much, but it just gives a little bit more insight to the type of interactions, personality types that they have with each other?
Well, should one of them turn out to be the killer or accomplice of the killer, then they're gonna have to remember how they felt about each other growing up and then right now, and decide like whether or not they're gonna let whatever's going on affect that. So should that time come, it'll be a huge story device. For now, I think it's just a character development, which I love. I love seeing that in the midst of all of this horrific stuff going on around them, that they can still sit down and just have quiet moments and say like, yeah, we're friends and we're siblings and I can trust you and you can trust me with anything.
Okay, nice. And then speaking of that relationship with Garrett and Tessa, we do see another type of relationship, but with Garrett and Allison. And this one is they're on a stakeout and they're trying to figure out who is the individual that is feeding this reporter information about themselves. And we see their interaction is actually, brotherly, sisterly, sibling type love interaction. We see that they're kind of joking a little bit, and Garrett even makes a comment saying, you would be a great mayor, that even though you're the biggest pain in the ass that I know, but you would be a great mayor. He gives her a compliment, and Allison says, oh, well, you think so? And they both laugh, and you can see that it's not the same. You can say that it's not the same as Garrett and Tessa's relationship, but we can definitely make that assumption that it looks like it's getting a little bit better than from what it was from the start of the season, how Allison was immediately confrontational with Garrett and wanting to know, well, why are you suddenly here? What business do you have here? They look like they're starting to get along a lot better. And it looks like Garrett is slowly opening up to Alice, not so much as he would to Tessa, but it looks like he's starting to allow her to be in his life. And then we kind of see that Garrett notices the individual coming out of the house, and he says, oh, well, why don't we just leave? Why don't we just go out and go do something? And Allison notices an individual coming out of the house, and it is her husband coming out of the house giving the reporter a kiss. Did you guys think immediately that he was the individual giving the information? Was that the first thing that came to y'all's minds, or do you feel like it was something a little bit more elaborate, assuming that you didn't obviously finish the entire episode. Like, on that moment, what was y'all's initial thought process? I'm gonna go with Jess.
For whatever reason, and like this is one of those obvious things that should have struck me, I wasn't thinking about, oh, Allison just caught her husband cheating on her. For me, the focal point of that scene was Garrett saw his brother-in-law before Allison did, and he realized what was going on, and he's like, oh, let's go, let's leave, we can come back later, whatever. So he might not have the same, close bond that he has with Tessa, but his instinct was still to protect his sister. And
Right.
I think that says a lot more about his relationship with the rest of the family, because really, like, that just made me consider Garrett and the series in an entirely new way, because, like, he keeps threatening his mom that he's gonna, like, blow this whole story wide open, and he's gonna tell, and he's gonna do this, and he's gonna do that. But he doesn't actually do it, and seeing the way that he was protective over Allison, like, not realizing that, his sister's pretty freaky deaky behind closed doors.
Ooh.
he was,
Jess.
I think his desire to protect overrides everything else. I think that there's something in him that's just instinctually out for his family and out to make sure that they are safe. It's not the smartest instinct that he has, but I think it's something that is so deeply ingrained in him that a couple of threats isn't gonna, make him suddenly turn around and be like, you know what, I'm my own man. I'm not my family's coin-operated boy anymore. I think he did a great job, living by himself in the woods for however long. But I think, his call home, his being pulled home, and now he's pulled back into that madness, and he's falling back into those same old patterns. So that was one of the things that I really took away from the scene and the series as a whole. And I don't know if, I'm overanalyzing or just putting meaning and context, where there is none. But yeah, that was the first thing I noticed. And so Tom being the person that reporter is cozying up to wasn't really on my radar, and I realized like half a second too late when she started looking a little bit shocked and she was like, oh my god, it's Tom. And I was like, oh, that's gotta suck. But I was like, wait, he wants to work on his marriage with his wife. He wants to, have their family succeed among all of this treachery and intrigue and scandal that's going on. So I was like, nah, this has got to be one of the biggest red herrings the show has thrown at us so far. Just because, I can't see, because was it last week's episode or the week before that, like Tom was talking about how the Hawthorns and the Silver Bells murder case had actually impacted his business as well, and he was losing clients, and they didn't know how they were going to afford their twins' private schools and all these other things. And why would he continue to tip off if he wants to shebang with a random journalist, sure, whatever, that's cool.
Shebang, baby.
But why would
she moves.
Why would he continuously tip her off, give her all of the Hawthorns' dirty laundry, if he actually loves Allison, if he wants their family to remain intact from this storm? Why would he help her if he wants to continue, making a living for himself? Because all of this scandal obviously isn't good for his company either, because obviously, his business is so entrenched with his wife's that he's losing out financially as well. Like, if Allison goes down, Tom goes down as well. Like, this is not a win-win situation for him, or even a win-lose. This is...
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you go down on other people.
Yep.
Yeah, man.
Shebang.
So, no, I don't think that Tom is the leak.
Right. I mean, you do bring up very solid evidence to showcase, what he had said in a previous episode that, that it's impacted him too, that this event is making him and his family suffer quite a bit, that it's starting to hurt them financially. So you really do bring up the great point of, why would he even decide to be this leak of information for the Hawthorns? So it would seem, unlikely, at least from first glance. And speaking of first glance, we then see a little bit later on that Brady finds out that the woman actually lied about not knowing the Hawthorns. The reason being is because they noticed that she had in one of the pictures that he took from the house, that he noticed in one of the pictures there was a picture of Mitch for the rosary. That there was a picture of him, and
rosary.
Yes.
That's it. The wake.
Well, however you want to call it, wake.
Yes, the funeral service.
Service. We'll go.
Yes,
with that.
never trust blind old ladies. Apparently.
Yeah, because she apparently said, "Oh, well, I don't know this person, but it doesn't seem that way," because she had it, and you can tell from the picture that she looked like it was part of her mail that she got, I guess, and she decided just to leave it there. So the detectives notice that, and they decide, you know what, we're gonna go ahead and pay, her back a visit and figure out what it is that's going on. But in the next scene, we see Jess's lovely children are talking to each other.
Jess's children.
Jess's children. She loves them to death.
She gave birth.
The two kids decide to run and go to the cabin that Garrett had mentioned that he had stayed at. And they enter in and they notice a couple things there. They're kind of just, looking around, seeing, what's in it. And what we see, it's kind of just like a regular cabin. It's, has a couple of stuff, has a drawer, has a bed, and it has, I guess you could say like the essentials that you normally would see. But Jack opens up a drawer and we see that the drawer has a lot of stuff in it. I don't know if anybody caught that, but in the drawer we noticed that it has gloves, it has tape, it has things that you normally would suspect. It has like light bulbs and everything. Normally things that you would suspect you would need for the essentials to maintain the cabin, or maybe something else. So who knows? But then we noticed that this crazy little girl, this literally a twin of, I swear to God, it's literally the twin of Jack, fires a crossbow.
Soulmates.
Right. Oh yeah, they're your children too. And we notice that she fires this crossbow and she says, why don't you put this cup on top of your head? And tells Jack, why don't you put it on top of your head and I'll shoot it. And Jack says, well, me first, because you shot it first, so it's my turn. So she kind of just nonchalantly gives him the crossbow, and she puts the cup on top of her head. And this scene really did showcase, I guess, Jack's internal struggle, or what he wanted to do. Because you can see from his point of view, he's aiming the crossbow at the cup, and then he slowly just brings it down to her chest, to her head, to her chest, everything. And he's slowly just like picking it up and down, like as if he's trying to figure out, which target do I really, really want to hit?
Which way do I go? Which way do I go?
And this, she's so awkward. She simply just says, you're so disappointing. Like, really just made me put a palm to my head and just be like, what is wrong with this girl? I swear to God, what is wrong with her?
I'm not gonna lie, I thought he was gonna kill her.
I did too. I was like,
what? You know what? I have to admit, I really thought that's exactly what was gonna happen. I thought he was gonna shoot her like on the shoulder or something to say, and give up this excuse, like I wanted to see what it looked like,
I legit was prepared to, like, when he was like trying to aim the crossbow, I was prepared to yell out headshot, like really loud.
Yeah, I thought he was gonna like arrow her brain.
But
I thought so too.
When he stopped, when he was like, it almost looked like he was nervous and like actually having some of that what is that? Guilt? Like, stop trying to make me feel sorry.
Or
for
maybe it's because he
this.
actually liked her, and so he was like, I don't know if I really
I don't
want to
wanna-
kill her yet, because I kind of like her.
Yeah, but okay, I don't believe that. I'm like, stop trying to make me feel like this is something that I could be like, oh, how cute. No, it's not cute. They're both evil, and I want them both locked up far, far away from me. And he is still an evil little shit, and he doesn't deserve any of my praise for not murdering a little girl.
Oh, Jess, your children just love you. It's fine. But
Back, demons, back, I say!
Just don't give him a crossbow.
just as long as they don't have that, everything will be okay. And speaking of annoyance, not to Cam or to the nurse, but to Sophie, we see that Cam is in the kitchen, and nurse comes in and says, hey, just let you know that that your ex-wife came in and tried to mess with her and tell her boss that that I was trying to get some sort of financial incentive for you with this idea. Basically, Sophie was just there to ruin it. And again, Jess's lovely character that she loves to death on the show really just showcases that she's really this self-interest horrible person. She's only
I told you she was not there for redemption.
She's only there for
She was there for love.
What a dumb bitch.
Oh my gosh.
And it's interesting because the nurse brings up a very interesting point about a connection with heroin and with Sophie. And she simply, asks, what do you tell me about your heroin addiction? And Cam explains what it's like to have this addiction, that you hate it but you love it, all these qualities that go about with having this addiction. And she simply just asks, okay, well then tell me about your relationship with Sophie. And and Cam responds that it's destructive, that that I crave her and that she has this hold on me. And he kind of personifies the relationship of how heroin is to the same way he has with Sophie. And you can kind of see that Cam is slowly starting to realize that, holy shit, Sophie really is bad for me. That, I gotta, if I want to move forward and be better and get better, I need to start removing individuals from my lives. I need to start doing things that are gonna make me feel better. So that little revelation that he had, I think that was really cool for Cam to finally realize it. So that was actually pretty interesting and a really cool scene to see. But then we see this really shitty scene for the family where the reporter decides to throw in a little bit more at the Hawthorns and say, but
That was a whole lot of shade.
yeah, it was a whole lot of shade, especially towards Tessa. And they say, it could even be a potential danger, especially Allison's younger sister being pregnant. And you see Tessa's face is just she is just simply shocked, and she has no idea, because then we start getting the idea that, okay, something else has to be at play here, because she simply says, wait, but I only told you. You were the only person I told, and she's referring to Garrett. And we then finally realize that, they've been bugged. So there was a bug under the table, and it came to mind how the bug even got there to begin with. But it was during that
You got
time.
me all wobbly.
Yes!
That's why she was wobbling.
That's why she was wobbling.
Ooh,
Like,
tough luck,
ooh.
Tom. Your stroke game is not bomb.
Yeah, her lady boner wasn't
I'm like,
popping.
oh, nope, it has nothing to do with you. It's just, she's just really good at faking it or something. I don't know. So we finally realized that there was actually no inside source. It was literally coming from their own mouths, coming from them. So, ooh. So we see that the mother is just pissed. She just gets the bug itself and just throws it into the cup of water and everything. You could tell she's just pissed. But then we move on to the next scene, and we see that both detectives, Cutter and Brady, Brady, go into the house, and the door is simply left open. It's dark, and we then see that they notice that she is on the floor dead. So, bum. So it leads to the idea that, okay, somebody had to have known that both detectives are really getting close to figuring out who may be a potential accomplice or who really is behind all of these atrocities. And to me, it makes me feel bad for this woman because she's blind and then she dies. So I felt kind of bad for her. I don't know about you guys, but
yes,
I felt bad. I don't know. It's just me, but
I thought that woman was crafty as fuck because, like,
true.
Speaking from experience, if you are disabled, nobody is going to suspect you of doing something bad, even if you did something bad. All you have to do is look cute or, like, heavily lean on your mobility aid. Not that I've done that before,
Lord,
but if
now
I
I'm
did,
suspicious of Jess.
I would just heavily
Jess is
lean on my
SBK.
walker and look, guilty of something.
Jess, you are SBK.
Just has to be.
Well, I am Jack's mother, apparently. That's alright. I can get down
We're
with
making
Sam.
it
That's
canon.
fine.
We're definitely
Wait,
just gonna.
I did get to get down with Cam, right? Because I'm cool with that. He's cool when he shaves and showers.
And his lady boner.
I don't think that's his. No, lady boner is mine. Regular boner is Cam's.
Cams.
Sam is loving this.
No, I'm still mad at the fact that that journalist thought it was okay to bug someone's house.
Yeah, because Sam, for those that don't know, Sam is an established journalist, so she has integrity.
I'm in a journalism program in Canada, so I'm, I know things, but...
She has Canadian integrity.
Yes, I have common sense, and I have humanity.
Canada.
It's true, though. You're not supposed to, as a journalism grad as well, you're not supposed to do things like that. But also, I was expecting that journalist to end up with unsavory body parts in the river. I don't know why my mind keeps going to that, same old scenario this episode. But really, the Hawthorns are scary ass people. I would be afraid of tangling with them.
No, but I just, as a human being, you don't do that to anybody. And then when your boss says, where did you get those facts from? You don't have a source. You say, oh, I found it in this bug. Unless that records what it says, then you have nothing. It's like, oh, I just pulled this out of my ass. Here you go. I'm going to report on it tonight. She's just like crafty little so-and-so, and I'm really mad that she did that. Also, did Brady not know that lady was blind? Like, she all but spelled it out for him, and I just thought, are you kidding me?
I think she knew, or I think he knew because, every time he would make an insensitive comment, he would just kind of, the look on his face would be like, I am a shitheel of a human being. I don't deserve to live on this planet anymore. And Cutter just didn't care. Cutter was just like, well, stuck my foot in it. Whatever. We can move on. She's blind. She's been blind for a while. Everyone get over it. Move on.
Yeah, good cop, bad cop, I guess.
But, Brady, I think, actually has a conscience and a soul and, doesn't like to offend people. But I think when you're thinking too hard about not offending someone, you're accidentally gonna, stick your foot in your mouth no matter how much you want to do the exact opposite.
But I do feel like he was kind of being a douche in this episode, and I say that because not on purpose. I just he was just being a douche, and he was just being insensitive. And I say that because in this next scene we see that Brady comes home, and you could tell that he's a little bit, upset that he finds out that Tessa is pregnant, but through unconventional means, not by word of mouth from her. And he says, it's in the news, the lieutenant found out before me, I don't understand. How could you not tell me? And Tessa tells him, well, I've been trying to call you and to let you know. And uh, Tessa tells him that, well, I've been trying to tell you, and Brady's response is, well, you need to try harder. That you need to get my, grab my attention or something, and let me know that, this about this event. And Tessa then explains, well, I've been thinking about not even wanting it because to bring, this, to bring this child into this world. I mean, look at Jack. What type of environment would we bring this child into? And she explains that, this horrific family legacy, this, shitstorm of a media fest here that's turned it into a circus. And she even says, an absentee father. And Tessa says that you're never here because that you're literally never here with me. And Brady then again interjects and says, well, it's because of this case. So literally they're just going back and forth about about Tessa being pregnant and not, supposedly respecting Brady and not letting him know and stuff like that. But in this exchange, who do you guys feel like is in the wrong in this section? Do you feel like Tessa was in the wrong, or do you guys feel like that it was actually Brady that was in the wrong? If you guys had to pick a side, and I guess give a little brief explanation, whose side would you choose if you had to pick one?
Team Brady.
Okay, Poppy, I'll start with you. Why would you pick Brady?
Brady, because, like, really, Tessa, like, maybe he's been gone, like, 2 or 3 days because he's been working on this case, but, like, that's so foul to say, an absentee father. I'm like, really? And, like, lady, you've been living over at your mother's house for, like, forever. Like, seriously, who's absentee? So I thought that was kind of annoying. I get where she's coming from because she's all torn up inside as far as, like, oh my gosh, is he going to be a killer? Is he going to be a little Jack? Is he going to be, a little me, all nice and proper and all that kind of stuff? So I get why she's freaking out, but she needed to open up and talk with her husband. I mean, that's what her husband is there for, to, like, share her, her deepest fears, her worries, everything. She's supposed to be sharing the good times and the bad times with him, and I thought it was a little foul that she, like, left him out of the equation. And I completely understand where he's coming from because, like, the last thing that you want to hear, or the last way that you want to learn that you're going to be a father for the very first time, especially after all the time that you've been going through treatments and whatnot because the pregnancy has been a little difficult, then, the last thing that you want to do, or the last thing that you want to have happen to you, is to be told by other people and then have, it's probably extreme to say the world find out, but at least the entire city find out before you. So yeah, I get both sides, but I'm a little bit more Team Brady because I thought that was kind of foul on Tessa's side. But I can forgive her because she's going crazy, thinking that her child might be crazy.
Okay. Jess or Sam, do you guys agree? Are you more Team Brady in this scene, or no, more Team Tessa?
I think I've always been more Team Brady just because the way Tessa conducts herself, even before her pregnancy, like now she kind of has an alibi. Before she was pregnant, she was still acting very hesitant, very against Brady breaking into this case because she knows it's in her family. So she didn't want her husband to betray her trust, and he did in a way, but he didn't because he was doing his job as a police officer and detective, So I think she's always been not whiny, but just kind of like irritable. Once she found out that it was her family for sure, she was just like, oh crap, now where am I supposed to go with this? And then she, I guess, somewhere conceived in that point, like in that area of time, I don't know. And now it's just like, oh, well, he's too busy at work. But Brady just wants to get this done and over with, which I know everyone feels that way. So, I mean, I think he's always looking for the best interest of their family, and his job is very demanding, and she needs to realize that. You can't just marry someone in the law enforcement career field and just be like, oh yeah, you're going to be home with me like every day and every night, right? Like, no, that's exactly the opposite of what you're getting into. And I don't think she had a clear idea of that by the sounds of it and how she acts getting into this marriage. I don't know how long they've been married for, but it's like, you're going to have to allow him to do his job if you want to keep this family together and if you want, to be a decent human being. So I'm like Team Brady.
Okay. Jess, what about you? Which side do you think was a little bit more on the right?
You know, I'm team. I can kind of understand both of their reactions. Like, obviously, they've both, up until this point, Brady has thought that they are, on the same page. They want a baby. That's something that they mutually strive towards. But now Tessa's like, well, I don't want the spawn of Satan developing in my uterus. Like, and Brady is not even thinking along those lines. Brady is like, oh my god, like, this is gonna be so awesome. I can't wait to, like, have a kid and teach it how to throw a ball and, like, go to every single thing that they have and do all those dumb parent things that embarrass children. I can't wait. I'm so excited. But, like, it's such a toughie because, like, I can see where Tess is coming from and I can see where Brady's coming from. And I definitely think, the way that Brady found out, not through a one-on-one conversation with his wife, but from the news, I think that was definitely an issue. But I do sympathize with Tess because, if I was in that situation, I can't say that I would be totally upfront and honest right away. And if the bug hadn't forced Tess to be honest, like, I wouldn't blame her for holding on to that secret for as long as she could.
So then if you had to pick a side, which one would you pick?
I am Switzerland.
You're Switzerland.
Yes.
Well, as for me, I kind of have to disagree with both. I actually a little bit more on Tessa's side, only because...
You would.
Of course. But the reason I'm a little bit more on her side is because, yes, she has all this, pressure of her family in regards to this media storm that's going about her, but she's also helping taking care of Jack, too, at the same time. Because you don't see really anybody else stepping up to the plate in order to help Cam or anything. So I kind of feel like she's been giving on a lot more than usual, than what you normally would deal with. And the fact that she is trying to figure out a way to handle her situation with her being pregnant and all, I think Brady was a little bit insensitive in those regards because he states that, well, you need to get my attention, you need to do all this. Well, again, he's not seeing it from her side where she's having to take Jack, to handle Jack because nobody else is doing it as well. And then the fact that she's figuring out that, in her mind, she feels that, what if her child ends up being kind of reminiscent of how Jack is, or kind of like what runs through her family. She's having all of these issues inside her, and she's trying to figure out a way to cope with everything. And I feel like in Brady's situation, it kind of just feels like, well, kind of need to see it from her perspective too, that yes, it was unfortunate that he found out through his lieutenant that it came out on the news because it was reported, but it's not like Tessa intentionally made that to happen. It wasn't actually Tessa's fault that it came about in a really unorthodox way of Brady finding out. So I feel like she shouldn't be at fault for not stating to Brady right away, because again, she's trying to handle it the best way that she knows how to. And for Brady to simply say, well, you need to get my attention, why aren't you telling me? Well, again, you kind of made it apparent that in her eyes, she sees that he's making it apparent that this case really is about everything what he wants to do. So I guess I'm a little bit more Tessa's side, but again, that's just me. But if
well, sometimes people aren't always right.
But this one I am, though. Thank you, Poppy. But if we were to move on just a little bit further, we see Allison decides to visit the reporter. And she decides to confront her about the bug and her sleeping with her husband. This entire scene really showcases how dark Allison can be, because she simply tells her that, I could report this, you can get sent to jail for roughly 5 years. So now Allison is the one who's holding all the cards on her side. And you can see that she knows this, that she's the one who has control over everything. And she tells her, at least I know that that I'm not like you, that you like the misfortune of others, and it, fuels you. And Allison makes the point that, all the obstacles and hurtness that I have, she says, at least I'm not you. And she says, I thank you for that. So then she decides, okay, and as for the bug, I might decide to press charges, but don't worry, I'll let you in on everything. And she tells her, I want you to report, the good things about us and to leave it at that. And she tells her to take off her shirt. And I thought, okay, what in the world is going on at first? But tells her to take off her shirt, and she gets her shirt, and she has a pair of scissors, and she cuts off the turtleneck part of the upper part of the shirt, and tells her, okay, go ahead and put the shirt back on. And she still has it on her heel, and you can see reporter then, gets on her knees and gets the shirt and puts it over, and Allison says, and she simply just walks off. Poppy, how did you feel about Allison's personality in this scene? Did you like it? Did you hate it? How did you feel about it, the way that she handled this situation?
I liked it. I feel like she was justified, especially after all that damage that was being done to her family. Not only her family, but also her political career. I mean, these bad stories about her family don't necessarily help her in her trying to become the mayor of the city. So I feel like she was justifiably pissed. How she did it, though, that was gangsta, so I have to give her props. And I think it kind of, gave us, maybe a little bit more of a tease or a hint that maybe she has a dark side. So for those out there that are kind of rooting for, I don't want to say rooting, but at least that are suspicious of Allison being the accomplice to SBK, then they have their proof right there. They're like, oh, okay, she can be tough and intense and kind of cuckoo, which is good.
Makes sense, yeah. This scene could definitely provide evidence, or further evidence if people feel like they have more, of maybe Allison being a potential suspect. Who knows? Maybe. But now we go to probably one of Jess's favorite scenes in the show, because it's involving Sophie. Come on, we all know Jess loves Sophie. And we see that Cam and Sophie are having this little discussion, and Cam is letting her know that, that I'm taking responsibility right now, and I don't want this anymore. I don't want anything to do with you, because our relationship is destructive. And Sophie simply just says, you always do this. We always do this. We always break up, and we always find a way to get back to each other. And Cam says, we fight and we throw things, and it's part of the dysfunction that we have with each other, and it's not healthy for us, and it's not healthy for Jack. It's not healthy in any way, shape, or form. And Cam says, I don't want this anymore. I don't want you anymore. You can see Sophie is upset that what she's hearing, that it's not to what she wants. Jess, I have to ask, I'm pretty sure, were you rooting for Cam to, finally put his foot down and say, you know what, I'm done with you?
I was. And when he finally did, I was like, bitch, bye. You can leave now. I never want to see your disgusting face on my television screen again. Bring on Nurse April.
This is going to sound so wrong to say, but once he kind of broke up with her, hopefully this is the last time that they break up, in my mind I was like, okay, her storyline's over. That means that SBK's accomplice can now kill her.
Oh. That would be
Oh my god, yes!
Yeah.
I would be
Just
so
did
happy.
Cam get a little sexier to you? I know that you have the problem with
Yes.
the facial hair, but did he get a little sexier to you when he grew some balls and dumped her?
He did, actually. You know what? I want to see him cry. And that is a compliment coming from me. He did definitely, like, shot from, like, a 0 to, like, a 7.
Oh,
On the
okay.
scale. I had to think about it. I was like, 5, 6, 7. 7 if you take the shirt off and cries. There's still time for that.
But we see somebody who definitely got a 0 was Jack. We find out that
Aw.
Tessa and Brady are at the doctor's again. They're, having their appointment and everything, and they seem to be getting on a little, getting on with their relationship a little bit better. They're able to communicate, at least from what we're seeing. And Tessa gets a message and says, Jack got kicked out. I need to go pick him up. So she then picks him up, and I can just imagine Jess is thinking in her head, like, oh my god, like, what could this little shit have done to get kicked out for only being there a short amount of time, and yet he still manages to get kicked out. So I can just imagine what was going on through Jess's mind. But if we were to move on just a little bit further, we see that Brady is going through photos, doing, usual police work. He's finding through, different things that maybe he could potentially find. And Tessa tells Brady that, well, he got kicked out because he had a knife. And the policy is that you're not supposed to have any weapons. And Tessa just gets a knife and throws it on the table. And Brady inspects it, and he notices that there is a chip, or there is a missing part on the knife. And of course, you hear the music, getting a little bit more eerie and, fast paced, a little bit faster. And he sees that the piece that they have found on the floor, it looks like it fits into the knife itself. And you see Brady's face full of just pure adrenaline and wanting to know, Jack, where exactly did you get this knife? You need to tell me right now, where did you get this? And Jack immediately says, I got it from Uncle Garrett's cabin. And of course, the next scene just shows Allison, Madeline, and Garrett taking a sip, a toast, for a job well done. And we see that the camera kind of zooms in on Garrett taking a sip, and then it shows Madeline with a more serious face taking a sip. And then it leads off into Garrett slowly sitting back down on the chair, and he's, more in a relaxed position, and he's simply like with a grin, and then it cuts off. And the way that it ended, do you guys feel like it was a great way to end the episode, or did you guys hate it? Were you fed up with it? What did you guys feel about the ending, the way that it was presented?
Stop framing Garrett, please. Ugh. The way he smiled didn't help his case at the end.
Oh my gosh.
No, it didn't.
But, I just gotta... why would he have a knife? Why would that be the exact knife? I think because this is a very big throwback to, like, the first couple episodes. I don't remember which one. But Madeline, I really think she hid the bells in the box of, like, newspaper and then the clippings. So what other memorabilia, I guess, or murder weapons or anything does she have that she can just throw at Garrett or someone saying, like, oh, look, there's the knife, like, he did it, So I'm just like, I think she planted it. I know that's kind of bizarre, but, like, what if she did that? I think she did. She's very capable of a lot of things that I think we still have yet to see, so I think I would not put that past her. I would not put much past her because Garrett was threatening to tell the truth, and he kind of just downed his bank account a little bit, or her bank account. And, look, there's a knife. Like, I don't know if Madeline...
Oh, there's a knife.
Just put it there. Like, like just to plant it, right? Anyways, regardless, I think she put it there. I don't think... Because Garrett would, if he did something, keyword if, he killed someone, he would not leave that there. He is not stupid. So I don't think, overall, I don't think he did anything. I'm still pushing for him being innocent.
I thought he was gonna die, to be honest with you. Like,
Oh
I
my
thought
gosh.
that Madeline slipped something in his drink, like foxglove or something, but like a massive amount, or something like that.
Jess, how
and
do
he
you know
was
this
just gonna
stuff?
die. It's on Cold Case in basically every show
Oh.
in the 90s.
Jess has been doing some extra research for the show.
I binge watch old shows. But anyway, yeah, I thought he was gonna die. I thought Madeline poisoned his drink. I was like, oh, there is a limit to this mother's love, and Garrett has tapped out that limit. She is mad as shit. And when he, didn't die, I was like, oh, I'm surprised that you're still alive.
So then, if we were to rate the episode from 1 to 10 silver bells, what would you guys give it? And I'll start with Sam.
I'm going to rate this episode 8 out of 10 silver bells. I liked it. It was very peculiar on every front, and there was a lot of major things that happened. The breaks in the case this week were really interesting, and we got to see everyone in a different light. I know there's a lot of light being shot on them right now, but it was very interesting to see them, how they operate this far in to the series, and how like they're trying to be more cautious, but they're really not doing a very good job. Overall, it was an 8 out of 10 for me.
Nice. Poppy, what would you give it from 1 to 10 silver bells?
I give this episode 8.5 silver bells. I thought it was a decent episode. It wasn't one of the stronger ones, but we did have some really great character development and nice sort of smaller scenes between the characters as well. I loved seeing Garrett interact with Tessa and Garrett with Allison. I loved Allison sort of like getting into the trenches and making sure that things were going to head into a little bit more of a positive situation for her family by sort of taking down the reporter. I like that. And of course, everything Jack was really interesting and fascinating. I'm glad that it appears as if Sophie will be heading off into the ether so that SBK can kill her. And I'm loving all the development with Brady and Cutter. And I know I said this last week, but I can't believe that I'm actually starting to like Cutter. Like, their dynamic has shifted completely from an antagonistic one to a beneficial one, where they're really helping each other trying to solve this case. So for me, 8.5 silver bells, and maybe that half silver bell has like a little bit of blood on it.
Nice. Jess, what would you rate it from 1 to 10 silver bells?
7.3.
Really, Jess?
Jess is always the low one.
You can't have a third of a bell. Why are you doing
Okay.
She just has the little ball of the bell that makes the noise.
The tinkly part.
Yes, I know you love a tinkly part, Jess.
Oh my god.
Oh god. No wonder this show gets complaints. But no, I liked it. I just, this show, for a summer show, I find it good, and I find it reasonably entertaining, and I do like it, and I like the different layers that are unlocked every week. But I'm getting a little bit tired of Garrett always being the fallback, or the guy that they go to be like, oh my god, murder, 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 burn him in the square.
It's because of his looks. It's like, oh, he looks like a killer. It must be him. I hate
Well,
that.
that and the whole, like, trying to shave himself with a knife that he sharpened on a rock, and the whole, like, woods fetish, taking a girl that he barely knows out to camp in some secluded woodland area.
You would not be happy if a man wanted to share his wood with you?
Not in the middle of a forest where nobody could reach us and I wasn't allowed to use my cell phone. What if he turned out to be a serial killer?
Oh well, everybody has their flaws.
I would be dead! That's a pretty big flaw.
Oh. Whoops.
Yeah.
Gonna have to
so-
console with Brittany on that. I'll be sure to do that. But I think if I had to give it 1 to 10 silver bells. I probably would give it an 8. Yeah, I think it was a
Okay.
good episode. I don't think it was that strong, but I do feel like it really did showcase like how badass Allison can be. I think it really uh, perpetuated Tessa and Garrett's relationship really well in this episode, and I feel like I did not like the way Garrick was being thrown in. How it's got to be him. There's more clues that are trying to hint towards him. I was kind of annoyed with that, but I want to see what they do with it. Hopefully in the next episode that it'll lead to something. So, but I think overall, I think I would give it 8 silver bells. I think it was a good episode. So I'm hoping it continues that trend for the next one. Now is the time where we make our predictions for the Silver Bells killer, but the accomplice as well. So I'm going to start with Jess. Who do you predict is the SBK and the SBK's accomplice?
So I definitely think Mitchell had something to do with it, but I'm not sure now if he was the accomplice or if he was the Silver Bells murderer, because looking at it like just from that brief little bit of him that we saw before he, was murdered by Madeline, he seemed to be the more passive, person in the relationship, whereas Madeline was more the dominant one. So I can see him being the assistant, if you will, or the accomplice, and Madeline pulling all of the strings. Like, we don't have all of those details, but we do know that, they've both been unfaithful to each other. Madeline was unfaithful at some point. Mitch was unfaithful. So I know this is very unlikely, but I just remembered that at the end of the episode, and I was like, well, maybe, like, it was never reported, but one of the people that they were unfaithful with, maybe, they were the first victim for the murderous couple. And no one cared. Like, maybe they covered it up. Maybe it was like a couple bonding activity. So I'm going to go with Mitch as the accomplice and Madeline as the main killer. And as for like all the shade and suspicion thrown at Garrett, I'm going to have to say like that he figured out what his parents were up to. And unfortunately, Cam also got sucked into that whirlwind. I don't know if Allison is involved, and I think it's least likely that, Tess had something to do with it, although I wouldn't count her out either. I think at this point that it is a multi-layered, multi-generational family affair for these people.
Nice. Okay. Poppy, who do you think is the SBK and the accomplice?
Okay, I think SBK is 100% Mitch. Mitchell is SBK. As far as the accomplice, okay, let me go into sort of like the mechanics as to like why I think the accomplice is who this time around. For the past few weeks, ever since episode 2, I've been stuck on Tessa being the accomplice. And I know there are a bunch of you that have been stuck on Madeline being the accomplice, but to be honest, for me, Tessa did nothing suspicious this episode. So if I'm just going to go by who was suspicious this episode and all of like the stuff that we learned throughout the other episodes, I have to go, even though I don't believe it's him, but all the evidence pointed to Garrett. I mean, Tessa didn't do anything suspicious. How people are going to justify Madeline with this episode? Madeline did nothing suspicious this episode. So I can't even guess that it would be her this episode.
Madeline is the matriarch of that family, and therefore it's her fault that Jack exists. That's suspicion enough.
No, she literally did nothing this episode. She was like in 2 scenes. So I can't get any evidence against her in this episode. Much like I've been hardcore that it's Tessa. There was no evidence against her this episode. The only 2 people that did come off as hella suspicious in this episode were either Allison or Garrett. And chopping off a turtleneck doesn't seem vicious enough to be an SBK. So unfortunately, just because of the evidence, I'm going to have to say Garrett this episode seemed hella sketch and could have been the accomplice. I still believe, though, that the reason he had the knife wasn't some grand plot like conspiracy theorist Sam thought, that Madeline snuck off into the woods and hid the knife and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to believe that he did take the knife whatever many years, 14 years ago, and he kept it. Maybe he knew that it was involved, maybe he didn't, and that's why he has the knife. I honestly don't feel like he is the accomplice, but if I'm just going by the evidence at hand and what we saw this episode, I can't justify Tessa as I have been the past few episodes. I have to pick someone else, and unfortunately, Garrett, you're my choice this week. I apologize ahead of time.
Okay. Nice. I think SBK, I feel like it is Mitch. I feel like it's him, and I feel like the accomplice is... Oof. I don't know. I don't think it's Garrett, and I'd say that it's not Garrett because I feel like it'd be too easy that it would be him, and I feel like a lot of the evidence that is supposed to be transparent to him, I feel like it was placed there on purpose to show that it could be him, but I feel like it'd be too easy. I feel like it wouldn't make any sense for it to be him. I feel like he's aware or he knows something about an individual, and I feel like I'm still sticking with it. I feel like it's Cam. I do feel like it's Cam, and I feel like it was more of a repressed type thing, but I guess you can say I'm a little bit biased because I don't want to pick Garrett because I like him as a character. Same thing with Tessa, I like her too, but I'm still going with Cam. I feel like he may be a part of it, who knows, but that will have to wait for another time, I guess. So Sam, if you had to pick, who would you pick for the SBK and SBK's partner?
Okay, I am not going to stray from Madeline being the SBK. It's just, I know Poppy said there was nothing this episode that made her suspicious, but there's so much stacked against her up till this point in the last 8 weeks, so I think she's the killer. Now, the accomplice, yes, again, Poppy said that cutting a turtleneck sweater is not suspicious at all, but the way she did it and orchestrated it, I think Allison is the accomplice. She was able to easily go down that road of just like holding a potential weapon in her hands. Yes, she didn't hurt the journalist with it, but I do think, well, if she can do that, what else could she have done? And now that I think about it, her before trying to have everything perfect before the fallout came, very suspicious. And her and Madeline are like two peas in a pod. Like, they would be sisters, honestly, in another world if it wasn't her daughter, because they just act so similarly. I can't begin to think that it would be anyone else. Like, Garrett is not the killer, and again, like Poppy said, yes, that's a huge conspiracy theory. I don't think he used it to kill anyone. I just think that he would have used it for like a daily task, like shaving his beard or like cutting food, something like that. So that's why I said that. But Garrett is, in my mind, not suspicious, even though he did look the part. So I'm going to say Madeline is SPK and Allison is the accomplice.
Something a little bit different. I like. With that being said, join us next time for a brand new installment of the Silver Bells Murders. Visit poppychularadio.com/archives to download this episode and many more. Registered users will gain access to our archives of previously aired broadcasts. You can download tonight's broadcasts through iTunes. Just search for it under the Silver Bells Murders and subscribe. Please like Poppy Chulo Radio on Facebook by going to facebook.com/poppychuloradio. Help support Poppy Chulo Radio financially by visiting gofundme.com/poppychuloradio. Email us via contact@poppychuloradio.com with any questions, suggestions, comments, or maybe even concerns. Are you interested in joining the Poppy Chulo Radio team as an on-air personality or maybe even a blog contributor? Email talent@poppychuloradio.com. Co-hosts, wish the listeners a happy good night.
Good night, listeners. SBK, we're on to you. And your accomplice, too.
Good night, everybody. Have a fantastic one.
Good night, listeners.
Thanks for tuning in. Join us every Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific for a brand new installment of the Silver Bells Murders. Good night, everyone.